So I'm back. I left you guys on a cliffhanger last year where I was like, I really hope that I see you again next year and I have something interesting to tell you. Otherwise, this project is just going the way of, sadly, many projects have in the past where they just kind of peter out from lack of funding. But thanks to the Central Kootenai Food Policy Council, the Kamloops Food Policy Council, Boundary Community Ventures, we were able to secure funding from a variety of sources, and we can carry on with the work that started a few years ago. So I'm here to tell you about action, things we have actually been doing this year, which is very exciting since this project started with research, which is so often a place where we make a nice report and we tell people that they should do things and then nothing happens. So it's really exciting to be up here telling you that we are in fact actually doing things based on research. So the next slide, please. So what I'm going to cover in this presentation is just kind of a brief history of the project. I know that many of you probably remember sort of this project, but just for those who are not remembering or those who are new, I'll just go over that quickly. And then I'm really going to get into key problem areas of distribution and transportation for the food and agriculture sector. And then, much more importantly, or more exciting, I'm going to get into the solutions part, which is going to be kind of the bulk of the presentation. And then hopefully we will have a good chunk of time for feedback and discussion, which is really very important to Damon and I as we push forward with this portion of Grow and Connect. I just want to say that I have been immersed in this work for 3 years now, and I really hope I've created a presentation that is accessible and understandable to the audience. But if you have any questions about what I've presented, please don't hesitate to ask at the end. I'd be happy to answer anything. Okay, next slide. All right, so the history. So back in 2020 and 2021, I worked at an economic development office in Trail, and I started out doing research on supply chain disruptions because of COVID. So to get to the important bit, I found there are a lot of problems with distribution and transportation in the West Kootenai region and boundary. And food and agriculture seemed like a sector that was really struggling, but they were also really excited to work with me, which was really refreshing because most of the time in economic development, it's like, do we have to give you information? Wait, you want us to do things to solve our problems? Oh, no, we're not actually interested in that. So the food and agriculture people who are like, we're willing to do things, we will do things with you. I was like, great, let's do that. So that led to 2022, where I was like, let's start by building a supply chain model, because I had a great conversation with Nairi Marsh that I still remember, and we talked about this concept of a load board, and she was like, maybe you need to back up a little bit. Maybe let's just start by like, what kind of food is moving where within our region? So that's when I started mapping out the supply chain, and I just want to mention as well that part of my goal was to create something that was living, that was not just a static, here's a bunch of data snapshot in time. It was something that the producers, the participants of the data collection could actually keep up the data themselves very easily, which is one of the ways that projects often fail, is because the data becomes very quickly out of date. And then that went quite well, but the funding ran out at the end of 2022, and in 2023, my organization at that time has nothing to do particularly with food and agriculture, and I was really worried about the project staying in that organization and just dying. So I started reaching out to organizations that are actually food and agriculture focused. One of which was the Central Kootenai Food Policy Council, another of which was Boundary Community Ventures, and I started gathering this little working group of people who were interested in seeing it move forward. So we started planning what the next phase would be like. We talked about adding new types of users to the existing supply chain models and new feature possibilities, And that all led to applying for funding. And that's where I left you guys last year. So let's move to the next slide. I just want to take a moment to talk about where it is we're working in the food system, because I think it's very important to tell you where we're working and more importantly, what we're not doing. So this oval, the black oval here, is where we're actually putting tools in place and who will be using them. So outside of the black circle are consumers. We're not actually working with organizations to get food to consumers. There are already a lot of organizations, retailers, that work on getting food into the hands of consumers. We are working in this area where we have, ooh, I have a shadow hand, cool. We are getting food from local processors and local producers to local retailers and community food providers. That is our focus. We are also not worrying about external producers and processors, and we are not worrying about external buyers and external suppliers at this time. There might be exciting opportunities on that side of the diagram later on, but at the moment we're just focusing on local, and it's all about getting food into the hands of retailers, restaurants, and other food providers. So next slide, please. Okay. So I just want to pause and talk about community food providers because they are, as we heard earlier in the soapbox section, a very important part of getting food into the hands of consumers. And I really liked the kind of replacement term for food banks, which I think was like food access organizations. What a great term. Covers so many different activities and programs that those organizations do. So the reason that I want to highlight them is that what we're doing is for these food providers as well. It's not just for retailers, it's not just for restaurants. So food banks need a solution to manage buying food from multiple local sources. That's something that the tools we're building can help with. Food recovery need to collect and consolidate food from retailers and restaurants. Again, that's something that our tools can help with. Schools, they need to get local food to provide to students in meal programs and stuff. We'd like to help with that. And then I just want to do a shout out that this is something that is always on our minds, is emergency response. So in times of dire need, emergencies, we can help get food to consumers, hopefully, using some of the tools we're creating, and also help businesses navigate those very difficult times. And I'll try and talk about that a little bit more later. Okay. So into the key problems and areas of action. So the first problem, and I've talked about this in my past presentations, is the lack of understanding about what exactly are the needs and opportunities. And so the action that has taken place already is gathering that information and making it accessible. This is not about gathering information and putting it in a report and hiding it away. Like, this is about taking that information and getting it out there on the web where anybody can look at it. So you can go to the food supply chain model and see all of the actors in the food system and get that information right at your fingertips. The second problem is the need for really detailed information to facilitate transactions. And this was kind of like a thing that cropped up this year as we started really working on, okay, how can we help distribution happen? And we realized that, whoa, there's like a full other layer of really detailed information that goes on in every single transaction. So how can we support that information flow between the parties who are involved in the transactions? So we're building a secure space for transaction information to be shared between the parties. And I'll talk about that in a bit more detail in a moment. And then the third key problem is a lack of space for consolidating food which is preventing our ability to achieve economies of scale and basically lower the costs of distribution and transportation. So this is very early days for us, but we are looking at finding more places where we can consolidate food. Next slide. Okay, so digging into problem 1, food systems are very complex, and I suspect that all of you already knew that. And it makes it hard to find out what exactly those gaps and opportunities are. So the solutions that we're working on focus on addressing that lack of information and prioritize making it accessible. So in this solution section, I'm going to be talking about 3 different solutions. One is about improving the existing supply chain model to make it more robust with more kinds of data. The creation of a load board, which is very exciting. We have now reached that point, Nairi. And also making a communication space that's dedicated just to sharing ideas about how people can collaborate in the food system. So if we go to the next slide, this is what you will see when you log into the Grow and Connect web app that we're building. So you'll have options to create and manage your orders, explore the directory, and find connections and opportunities. So the first one that we'll look at here is explore the directory. So here's a giant QR code. You can go ahead and scan it, or you can go to growandconnect.ca, and this is where the model currently lives. And we are in the process of making the model bigger and better. We're going to have more types of users. We want all types of retailers on there. We want carriers on there. We want community food providers on there. And we are in the works of making this model make the move from the previous software platform that it was on to its own special software that will be dedicated to the purposes that we want to achieve with it. So I'm not going to talk too much about that because I have a lot in the past. If you have any questions about what you see at growandconnect.ca, just come and find me afterwards and I'll talk your ear off about it. Next slide. Okay, getting to the really exciting stuff, the load board. So for those of you who are not familiar with what a load board is, it is a common tool that is used in national and international shipping. And one of the issues I ran into before is the fact that that is the scale at which load boards normally operate. And what I wanted to do was build a load board that was really small and really specific. So just for our geography and just for the food and agriculture sector. So now we're actually working on that. So in a load board, you can post your routes. So you can let others know where you're going to be traveling, when you're going to be traveling, and what kind of capacity you have. And anyone can do that. You can be an official carrier company, or you can just be a person going from here to there who has space in the van, and you want to help people out by saying, I've got space in my van, and I can take sort of this much stuff. So all you have to do is you fill out a form that has all those details, and then it will appear on the posted routes table, and people can scroll through and see what kind of space might be available. This will be searchable as well, so you'll be like, I only want to know about people going from Castlegar to Nelson. And so you'll be able to narrow that down and just see the routes that are posted for your local geography that you're interested in. And transport types, you know, some people need frozen specifically, some people need refrigerated, all of those things as well. Or, you know, if you really know how much space you need, you can filter it by that. Okay, next slide. On the flip side, you can post your loads. You're like, gee, I really have to get this load of carrots from Nakusp all the way to Creston, and I don't know how I'm going to do that, and I'm really stressed. So you go to the load board and you post your load, carrots, it's going from the cusp, it's going to Creston, it needs to get there on this date, and it's going to require refrigerated shipping, and I need this much space. And then it appears there, and people who have space are like, I wonder who's looking for space in a vehicle. And they can go to the loads and go, oh, I'm going from the cusp to Creston, and this person needs their carrots to get there. The date range kind of works out. I'll talk to them. So you'll be able to click on one of the lines and see contact the person, and then you can get in touch with them. At this point, communication will be taking place outside of our platform. We are not at the point where we can accommodate people talking to each other within the platform, so it won't be like a Reddit forum where you'll be able to reply. It'll just be like you get the contact details and you can reach out to the person who's posted something interesting. Okay, and then there's well, what if I don't have a load? And what if I don't have a route? But I just really want to know, is anyone else interested in getting a bulk feed order together? And we could all bring it in from the coast and hopefully like split the cost of that delivery. Is anyone else interested in that? So now you're going to have a place to go and post that, and it'll sit there, and people can come along and be like, I wonder what collaboration ideas other people have right now. And they'll be like, oh, a bulk feed order. I never thought about that, but that's a great idea. I want to reach out to that person and have a discussion. So this will be more of like a less rigid kind of table where you can make posts just about your ideas. And again, at this time, we're not accommodating like conversations within the app. You will have to have conversations on the phone or by email or whatever. But at least this is a starting point where we can kind of put all of these ideas in one place, and you can have a starting point from which to have those conversations. There will also be sort of the ability for the person who posted it to like close a topic. So let's say that they've gotten like 6 people together for a bulk delivery to Alberta, and that's all they can accommodate, and so they don't want any more inquiries. So you can mark that conversation or that topic as closed. And this is meant to be as flexible as possible. So we've just put some examples up here, but the world is your oyster. Like, what kind of collaboration do you think you might want to have with people who are also in your sector, in your geographic area, all of those things. Okay, so that's that one. Moving on. So problem 2. As I talked about, transactions are complicated. Like, there's actually a great deal of information and coordination that has to happen to make any single transaction work. So if we're going to support better food distribution in these rural areas, then we need to provide one place which these transactions can be managed by all the different parties that are involved. So we've started, and it's something that is very experimental, building an order tracking app that allows for status updates to be seen by interested parties. So our goal is to increase reliability of shipments and help build stronger relationships between the parties involved. So be that retailers or other community food providers and producers and carriers. It's about having a place for information where you can refer back to and be like, oh, that's where my order is at, and have some accountability and trust, essentially. We will be paying attention to other softwares that users are making use of. So our platform is not going to handle payments, at least not anytime soon, right? So you're still going to need your Shopify or your Open Food Network or whatever method you use currently for actually conducting transactions. But this app that I'm going to go through next will give you a place where you can communicate very easily with the people who are involved in each of your transactions. So let's jump ahead to the next one. So the first thing you might see is creating your order. So let's say that you're a community food provider and you're like, well, I know kind of that this producer has product that I'm interested in, so I'm basically going to send them an inquiry. Maybe you've talked to them on the phone already, but maybe not. So you can create your order, and you just have to fill in a pretty simple form. So you need your producer, the product that you want, the quantity that you want, the destination where you're at, and also the delivery time frame. Okay, and so then, bam, once you hit create order, that shows up in the producer's sort of inbox, and they get notified that they have a new order that's pending. So they can review all of this information and be like, yeah, I can do that. Or, you know, maybe they can't, so they can let the person who ordered know that, no, actually, we can't accommodate that right now. But essentially, you just get all of the critical information about an order right there, and you get a notification that someone has placed the order. Next slide. And then, as a producer, you're like, okay, I can fulfill that order, but I need to get it to the person who's ordered it. So what are my options? So we have integrated a map feature. So you go to click on Find a Carrier, and it comes up with a beautiful map, and it shows a few different carrier options. Very cool. So you can click on a particular route and be like, what's this carrier all about? So you can see who the carrier is, what transportation method they're offering, and their schedule. And you might think, well, that carrier's not going to work. They're too expensive. I've talked to them. Or that carrier's not going to work. Their schedule is totally off for the requested delivery date. But this one, this green one in the middle, that one will work. That is the Goldilocks just right. So you click on that, and then you get in touch with the carrier automatically. You select that route. So let's go to the next slide. Yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, and so let's say that's all gone super well, and now people are just wondering, where's my order? What's going on? Has it actually been picked up? What's happening with it? So if you're the person who placed the original order, you'll be able to log into Grow and Connect and see a table with all of your orders that are currently outstanding. And you'll be able to see the status of your order. And then when the order actually gets to that end point and the carrier drops it off, the carrier will change the status to delivered. That's awesome. We're also working on a proof of delivery photo kind of option for carriers. And then when the person who placed the order goes outside and gets that pallet and brings it in, they can change the status to received, and the whole order is completed. So at every step of the way, we have these statuses that are meant to tell the orderer, the retailer, whoever it is, the producer, and the carrier what's happening with that order, so that there is a lack of confusion and one place to find the information, and we can build strong relationships because people know what's going on with any order at any given point in time. So that's the order tracking app in a nutshell. Problem 3. Consolidation of food, consolidation of orders. So as I mentioned earlier, we want to try and lower the costs of transportation by spreading out the costs, basically achieving economies of scale. So instead of one producer sending one order via carrier, which can cost quite a lot, what if we got a whole bunch of producers who happen to have roughly similar destinations and roughly similar schedules for their deliveries, and we put all of those orders together, and the carrier's like, good, like a full pallet order. This is awesome, much easier for me to deal with. I just know that I need to go to this consolidation point and pick it up. yeah, the cost of that is now spread over several producers, and maybe the carrier's also like, I'll give you a better rate if you can give me a pallet. I don't want to have to move like 50 individual boxes, but if you can give me 2 or 3 pallets, that's something I can give you a little bit of a shipping discount on. So that's where we're aiming for. And we're going to be identifying existing consolidation points on the Grow and Connect model. And we're kind of just starting that work, having those initial conversations about who has space to bring in multiple orders and do the management. It's not like people just drop it off and they magically get onto pallets by themselves, right? We have to have staff dedicating time to managing multiple orders coming in and packaging them appropriately and all of those things. So we're just kind of starting those conversations, and we know essentially that we're going to have to develop more of those spaces in the future. One of our goals is to get to more complex distribution routes so that we can move between areas, so all the way from the boundary to the East Kootenay or north up to Columbia Shuswap, you know, like these are much more complex distribution pathways that may involve changing carrier hands, may involve multiple stops. So eventually, when we have enough consolidation points, we'll be able to accommodate those through the order tracking app and in the load board and all of that sort of thing. Is there anything else I need to say about that? No. I think that's it. So yeah, 20 minutes, that's what I thought. So now the more interesting part of the presentation for me is about getting your feedback on what I've just presented. I'd love to have a bit of a conversation or hear your questions about what I've presented. Just 2 quick notes. Those interested in taking part in software tests and giving feedback on like user interface and how the software actually works, you'll be able to sign up at our table later on just to kind of express interest in that, and then we can get in touch with you. For those of you who aren't interested in giving that kind of feedback, but you're interested in what features and functionality the software will have, we're going to be running focus groups to talk about those kinds of things over the fall-winter period. So if you're interested in that, again, you can see us at our table later and sign up for those focus groups. Okay, so now I have some questions here, like, what do you find exciting about our plans? Do you have ideas or suggestions about consolidation? Do you have other category ideas for the load board that you'd like to see, or other collaboration ideas? Do you see any problems or barriers with adopting our software tools? And are there other avenues that you think we should explore? So those are some like starter questions, and now it's up to you guys. Thank you. Yay! Nope.
Hello? Test, 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 test. A little lower, little lower. Hello, hello, hello. A little higher. Okay, right about there. That's good. Yeah, does anyone have any questions?
Would it be appropriate for farmers to use this app to upload gleaning opportunities?
Which kind of opportunities?
Gleaning opportunities.
I don't know what that means.
Okay, so Dean Farms in Grand Forks, end of the season, they throw it up on Facebook that there's opportunities for people to come do U-Pick for low prices or free. That's gleaning.
That's kind of, oh.
You want, or sorry, go for it.
Well, that's an interesting one because at this point, we've focused on the software being useful to within that food system kind of circle that I saw earlier. My understanding of UPIC is that you would be trying to get that out into the community more, like for the public to come and do that. So I'm not going to say no, but it's like that's something we haven't considered. Damon, do you want to talk
Yeah,
to
and I
it?
would just say, like, I would say at this stage, no, because I think there aren't challenges to necessarily posting that kind of information out. I think the main focus here is really about, like, how logistics and transportation is happening at this point. James?
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. This is fantastic, first of all. This is, not a week goes by that I don't hear about this, not just, right across the province, Vancouver Island, Indigenous communities, I mean, getting access and the challenge of seamlessly moving product from small farmers and processors has been a challenge forever. So I love that you're really tackling this head on. Now, I was super happy to hear that you got some funding to do this project. What I was wondering is, like, is it sufficient funding to get the project to completion, or is that something that you're still trying to do to get it to the next chapter? Because I know it's not a linear process, right?
Well, at the rate that we come up with ideas, no. The funding will not get us to completion. It's going to get us a long way. So the funding that we have, and we have a funding gap as well. So we have multiple funders on board, and the funding is actually spread out between multiple projects. But so we have to find a bit more funding to get that funding gap filled. And then I'd say that this will get us to, like, beta testing kind of point, but it's very likely that there will be more development and sort of finalization pieces that we will need more funding for in the future. And hopefully by the time we get to that point, we'll be making more specific asks. One of the reasons that this funding is such a big win for us is we kind of went in with hey, we've got a bunch of, like, really big ideas that we want to execute on, and that's a bit harder to get funding for. And so hopefully in the future we'll be able to be like, okay, so we've got this piece of functionality that people are asking us for and we really want to add. So that's kind of where we're at.
I want to go back to what Tammy asked, and say yes, even though you both said no. I think the application could be utilized in terms of food banks and harvest share. Like, I think about Creston, we have a harvest share program. Thousands of pounds of corn was picked. We could move that throughout the basin a lot easier with this type of application. So maybe not specifically UPICs, but I think in a food recovery piece, right? Yeah.
Is like, yeah, if there is a large amount of product that needs to get from a farm to a food bank, this would be a viable option to search for
Yeah,
transport.
just speaking to the corn, Kimberly and Cranbrook, food recovery in Kimberly, food recovery in Cranbrook, and myself, Cranbrook Food Bank, we all went separately numerous times to pick up the corn. So if there was a way for, one, a trucking company or one, large cube van to go, then it would have been far more efficient use of resources. So something like this would be incredible. Yeah, good job.
Lisa.
Super excited. Let's get it done. Yeah. This is the third year. Let's get it done, you guys. So over the years, I need refrigerated. And so what I found when I've been asking people who are driving, other companies who do deliveries, they say, we don't have the insurance to take your stuff. So I go to Creston every 2 weeks. I am more than happy to take other people's stuff. But apparently, I don't have the insurance I have business insurance for Happy Gut products, but apparently I'm not insured to take other people's stuff. Do you guys, this is not about the app, so, is this too much information, a deep question?
It's a really good question. Do you want to talk about that, Damon, or?
I mean, It's the looming question, right?
Yeah.
Because we know it all comes back to insurance at the end of the day with so many things. So it hasn't gone unthought of, and I think there's, one concept is like, we didn't really get into it here, but there will be profiles. So every user would have a profile, and say if it was like a carrier like Dane over here, he could put a profile up and he could say, I'm insured for this. So people could at least advertise or say insurance up to date for these things. So if you have a specific requirement, yeah, you could. But I think there's bigger topics here to look at around the insurance, like if we're collectively working together, are there other options? But we haven't gone down that path yet. So this could be a later funding thing too that we might have to look into. I don't know.
Thanks. Just speaking to that, I think that there is an option for an umbrella group to obtain the insurance required for multiple carriers. I would research that.
I love the load board. I think that's a fantastic option that many people can use. You showed a map with 3 different routes, and what about cross barriers on those routes? Because I'm not a green route or a blue route or a whatever red route. I might do all 3. Are you talking then about putting, and I'm in Burton, and I'm not even on your map. So are you talking about putting distribution or sites in the cusp and then multiple spots, and then multiple carriers would be taking them on those things? Or are you looking at routes that can do different than those maps showed?
Okay, so yeah, now we're getting into the details that I wasn't able to talk about in 20 minutes. So essentially what we want is all people who are carriers in any way to be able to sign up as such with Grow and Connect and put in their data about what kinds of routes they're doing on what kinds of schedules, all of those pieces of information. And down the road, my developers tell me, because it's very complicated and will take them much time, we will have the ability for that map to automatically filter down to the routes that are relevant to the order that's been put in. So at the beginning, when hopefully we have a lot of carrier data, it might be a little bit overwhelming. There will be like a lot of routes that you can look at and sort through, but ultimately what we want is for the order form that's originally submitted that has the producer and their location and the end location, we're going to have that map automatically filtered down to the carriers that either touch on those destinations or hit consolidation points that are reasonably close by to the producer that the order is being submitted to. So that's our goal, and basically at this point I will say we want all and any carrier information. That's going to be a huge part of making this successful. So if you don't see yourself represented on that little example map, that's okay. Just give us your information anyway about what you can accommodate, and also the routes posted to the load board can also be viewed in map format as well. So if you're somebody who's an ad hoc carrier and just like posts a route every now and again, like, hey, I'm going from here to here, there will be a map for like those instances as well.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the destinations of where food is going, and then thinking about trucks coming back empty. And yeah, it might take some creativity around like regulations and that, but there's 2 brand new regional facilities for food waste for composting, and there's a huge gap in haulers that are available to take food waste from restaurants and markets and things like that. So I don't know if it's an opportunity to include that kind of data.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, backhaul is something that we're focused on because backhaul is already something that exists that we can work with much more easily. We're not trying to start new carrier routes. It's like carriers who have empty space already can let us know, and that can appear as a route. And then in terms of other applications that aren't moving like product for orders, but are moving, food recovery or food waste, like why not? This can totally cover those kinds of scenarios as well.
Yeah, super stoked about what you guys are doing. As a food producer, I'm interested to learn more about the distribution and warehousing piece, like what you guys are envisioning that you would manage on your end. Like for me, as I'm expanding or scaling up, wondering will there be warehousing opportunities where stuff can actually sit in a warehouse, or is it just load in, load out, and just the management and movement or tracking of that? The other piece that's coming up for me too is at the end of the day, cost of transport is a big part of the story for us. So how will we understand, how will it be monetized? Hey, I'm gonna throw my boxes on this pallet, we're gonna consolidate it, get it to this location. But how do I put a price tag on that so that let's say, for example, I'm delivering hot chocolate to Stoke Markets in Kimberley, and I have an invoice, I'm gonna invoice them, their order is coming, but how do I put a monetary price to that delivery charge for that situation on the invoice? So yeah, I'm wondering about the monetization piece and also about the warehousing piece.
Yeah, so those are incredibly pertinent questions, and to be fully transparent, we are at the very beginning of that conversation. So what would be ideal is for you to attend one of our focus groups where we can kind of dig into, wait, what's going to work for producers in terms of consolidation? What are your top concerns? And what we're hoping to do at this early stage is start facilitating those conversations between producers and carriers and retailers so that we can actually build something that will address those top concerns of all the different parties, right? So I don't have any answers for you, but those are things that we want to pay attention to. So the best thing you can do if you have questions like that about, wait, but how is this actually going to work? Sign up for a focus group so we can talk to you and we can build something that works from now, as opposed to trying to build something without information and then having to make a bunch of changes later. Okay, I think we've got time for one more question and then I have to wrap up.
As a retailer here in the Cusp, we're really dedicated to bringing a lot of local products here, and it's been really hard to get things figured out. And so this is awesome because we actually do a lot of driving ourselves to pick stuff up. And to what Shanice is asking, we actually have something set up with Clark or Castlegar Warehousing where we have a pallet, and people are bringing products there, and we're paying a flat rate for this pallet. And the more things we can get on there, the cheaper it gets. So we're already doing something like that, but this app is going to just make the work so much easier for us. So I'm really looking forward to this. And not only that, but we're always looking for people in the Cusp who are already going down to Nelson, might have space to pick up an order or something. So I really like the idea of people with vans also being on this. Hey, I'm going this place, and so I see a lot of value.
Awesome. That is a great note to end on. Or are we?
Sarah
Okay,
really
Sarah's
wants to
been
say
waiting a
something,
long
and I know
time.
we're gonna she's gonna say something really smart at the end here.
That's too much pressure. Just to the Happy Gut insurance question and also the backhaul question, something that I wanted to point out is the opportunity with this when it comes to data and analytics and learning. And so, for example, you're not going to change your insurance and increase your costs because you might have somebody consistently using you. But if you knew that every time you did a shipment, there was this other company that was going to pay you, you know, an amount to haul with you, maybe you would consider changing your insurance. Or with backhaul, if there was a consistent need, maybe that becomes the data needed to provide to the local government or the RD or whoever, that cost, you know, that particular carrier can serve that need on a consistent basis, and so on and so on. I said I'd be short. All of this is just to say that those analytical components are being built into what Rebecca and Damon and the team are doing, but it means it's really important for people to put up opportunities, even if for the first little bit those opportunities are missed or unfilled. Because if you can consistently see a pattern of need that's going unfilled, we can then say, like, it demonstrates that need. So I just want to encourage potential users to give it a solid chance, to not get frustrated if you put something up and it doesn't work right away, because those patterns are the key pieces to finding solutions.
Thank you, Sarah.
Great
That's very important. Just
And,
give it a try.
Yeah, and as in wrapping it up, Rebecca, I would just say, like, please track these questions here, and Rebecca's going to set up this afternoon at the expo as well, and will be available. I'm available to talk more about this, and we also have our 2 software developers in the house today, so if anyone's interested in having further conversation around this, we'd love to explore further today with you. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you guys so much.